Everybody. Welcome to the Freewrite 500. I'm Annie. If you've been on our streams before, you probably recognize me. I'm the marketing manager here at Freewrite. And today I have with me Grant Faulkner, who is the co-founder of the Flash Fiction Institute and the author of The Art of Brevity. That's an art that I admittedly have never learned, so this should be interesting. So while I go over how everything's going to work today, we'd love for you guys to sound off in the chat. I think some of you already are. Let us know where you're joining us from. I know there's people from all over the world here today, so drop it in the chat. So today, first, we're going to get a quick intro to Flash Fiction lesson from Grant. And Grant teaches this stuff at the Flash Fiction Institute and to writing groups all over. So we're really grateful to have him with us today to get things started. After that, I'm going to announce the prompt for the competition. I'll also let you know how judging criteria is going to work and how to submit your work when you're ready. All right. And then we'll end today with a community writing sprint. If you haven't done one of those with us before, it's really easy. I just tell you when to start writing, and then you write till we call time. It'll be 15 minutes today. And then we'll release you all back to your workday, and you'll have all weekend to work on your story. All right, sound good? We've got people, oh my gosh, we've got people from all over Canada, Singapore.
Ooh.
I think 2 people have mentioned trains.
Oh my gosh. Special bonus points for writing on a train.
Right?
I love writing on trains. Yeah.
That's great. Colorado, Michigan, Kentucky, Indiana, New York City, Phoenix.
Wow. Antarctica?
Did somebody say that?
No, I did. I want all 7 continents represented today. Yeah. We're going to choose honestly, a winner for every continent.
That's not true. Yeah, I can't keep up with this chat, but thank you guys for joining us from all over.
I can't wait to
we're going to start off with Grant's lesson here, so I'm going to hand it over to Grant.
All right.
Anything else for me, Grant?
I need many things, Annie, but I think I'll let you know afterwards. All the
nothing I can help with.
Yeah, nothing right now. Perhaps not. I'm gonna load up these super fancy slides. Everyone should know they're very fancy. And yeah, we're gonna talk a little Flash fiction. I'm gonna give you my background in Flash fiction, how I came to find this wondrous little form. Can everyone see the slides? Annie, can you see the slides? I now don't see myself on screen. Okay, there I am. I'm on screen now. Perfect. Okay. I hope that all works. Yeah, so this talk is titled The Art of Brevity. Sometimes less is truly more, and we're gonna explore that and see if less is truly more. And just to give you an idea of how I did come to this, at times it's a strange little form. I was writing what I now call this big, kind of monstrous, doomed novel. And if you've ever written a novel or aspired to be a novelist, you probably have at least 1 or 2 of these in your desk drawer. And I'd actually been working on it for 10 years off and on, and I was obsessed by making it work. And the reason it was doomed is I kept getting new ideas for revision, new things that would fix it, and then I'd revise the whole novel, and then it wasn't quite there. So I was getting quite exhausted by it, and actually, I don't know, didn't know what to hope for, really. And one night I was on this fabulous internet we have at our fingertips, and clicked on a link on Facebook that took me to my best friend from college, Jake Strom, his father, Paul Strom, who is a Chaucerian professor, but he'd written 100 100-word stories as his memoir. And I read them, and I was just enchanted by the form, every little story just kind of blossomed, and what I liked about it is it didn't need this grand narrative arc, all this kind of connective tissue of words. I didn't need the writer to guide the reader so much. And so it was a beautiful way to write a memoir, because I thought, this is the way I think of my life or remember my life. I remember it as a collage, and as a collage of snapshots. And the other thing that I thought was so cool about it is the tiny form allowed Paul to write about the small moments of his life, but small doesn't have to be insignificant. Sometimes the small moments of our lives are the most significant, and they're not the kind of significant moment that you might like share at a dinner party or a cocktail party. They might be very private. And so all of that spoke to me wanting to try the form. And so I started writing these short stories, except that my brain was wired for novels. It was like I had been training to run a marathon for 10 or 20 years. And so when I tried to write these short little stories, I just couldn't. I would get them down to like 150 words or so, and that was about as short as I could go. And so I told Paul this, and he said, no. You got to get into exactly 100 words. That's the idea. His metaphor was a fixed compositional lens of a camera, something you can't zoom in or zoom out. You have to work with those constraints. So I kept trying, excuse me, and he was right. I would work and work and work to just analyze, look at every word intensely. And is that word doing the work it needs to? Or is it like flabby? Is it extra? Is it an extra flourish? And what could I say in the story? What could I evoke instead of just telling it? And so it taught me all of these skills of writing. And it wasn't like 100 was a magic number. He could have said 97 word stories or 105 word stories. The principle was that working within a constraint and all of that focus and intensity that it gave me. And these little stories kind of became my form of poetry. And I actually got totally addicted to them. This is a warning to everybody taking the course. If you don't want a writing addiction, please leave right now, because it's likely that this is like a gateway drug to a lot of tiny little forms. Yeah, and it's kind of like a Rubik's Cube. It's a game. Your first draft might be 93 words. Then you have to add 7 words, but you end up adding 15 words. Then you have to subtract 8, but you end up subtracting 12. And so a story is it's consistently morphing. And it's not a gimmick, because as you're like adding and subtracting words, the story, you're just involved in the story more. So the story's even changing, and you might change it in ways that you wouldn't have ordinarily. So that's my little history in flash fiction. And now I'm going to show you a little bit where it led. Oh, I guess I got to go through can't advance on screen. Yeah, so it led me to founding 100 Word Story, the literary journal. It led me to publishing my own collection of 100 Word Stories, Fissures. It led me to write this craft book, The Art of Brevity, which was published a couple years ago. And then it led me to launching the Flash Fiction Institute with some great partners. Just about a month ago, I think we launched. And yeah, we have a bunch of classes and resources and prompts and everything. So I won't go into that now. You can check it out later. But my question for you is, what is flash fiction? Sometimes people like raise their hand at this point and say, you keep saying flash, what is it? And I'm going to look at chat and see if I can get an answer from you. So just put it in chat. I wish we could talk. Thanks, Jamie. Gateway Drug to Writing from Josiah. So yeah, if you have a definition of flash, and anything, it's kind of interesting how you can define flash. Catherine Smith, 100 to 1,000 words. That's good. So especially the 1,000 word part. So flash is traditionally defined as stories under 1,000 words, but they can go lower than 100. I mean, it might be interesting. It's kind of like the game of limbo. See how low you can go. So yeah, Quinn got it. Stupid fast. Wow, I like that. Short, punchy, the heart of the bigger story. Really good. Quick. Can you please turn on closed captioning? Willow asks. I'll have to defer to Annie for that. Brief but momentous scenes, Stephen. Yeah. And so they can be scenes more than whole stories with a beginning, middle, and end. That's an interesting definition. These are all great. Yeah. And David Young, fascinated by what the difference might be between flash fiction and prose poetry. I'm going to ask that quickly because that's not part of my presentation. They often get they're blurry lines between them, and I do write flash largely because it allows me to access my poetic side in ways that longer forms don't. But I've always been told that prose poem, what the author calls it. The author determines what a prose poem is and what a flash fiction story is. And I usually do an exercise around this, but you as author are in control. If you view it as a prose poem, it's a prose poem. If you view it as a story, it's a story. Some people say that a story is defined by a character who has goes through a conflict that has a beginning, middle, and end, 3 acts. So that's one definition of story. And a prose poem doesn't need to have that definition, but a story doesn't either. So sorry, I could go on at length about this, but that was a great definition of Flash, guys. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to advance the slide. What do we have? Yeah, but it's like a very interesting form to me because it's just 1,000 words, except it's like this series of Russian dolls. You know, you take one doll off and underneath it is a smaller doll. And you can do that all the way down to a 6-word story, which is what we're going to do today. But yeah, like microfiction is 400 words or less. Yasunori Kawabata, the great Japanese writer who won the Nobel Prize, wrote what he called palm of the hand stories, meaning they could fit in the palm of your hand. Smoke long is another word for them. In Chinese factories in the 30s, workers got one short break in the morning, and newspapers started publishing stories that were exactly the length of smoking a cigarette, more or less. Postcard stories, I sometimes have people write a story just on the back of a note card or postcard because of that fixed compositional limit. Drabble is another word for 100-word stories. And then the word flash came from James Thomas, who has basically popularized Flash in the United States. He's released a bunch of anthologies since the 80s. And he was calling the stories blasters back then. It was a kind of unknown form. And he said to his wife one night, he's like, we got to figure out a better name for these. And right then, a big bolt of lightning struck down from the sky. And she said, we should call them Flash. And that's kind of perfect, because one way to think about these stories are as, like, instead of a word count, think of them as this dramatic, intense moment of a lightning bolt that illuminates the world and changes it in a different way. But it's a moment. It's an intense moment. And that's why I like thinking about Flash, not just necessarily through a word count, but thinking of it through metaphors. And here's some of my favorite metaphors for it. Lori Moore says, a short story is a love affair. A novel is a marriage. A short story is a photograph. A novel is a film. And I really grasp on to photograph as defining these stories. My friend Kim McGowan said, if Flash were a food item, it would be a bouillon cube. And I love that, because it's like these stories are really small and they're compact, but they can be so super flavorful. They can hold so many flavors in that tiny space. And that Dorothy Parker, she wasn't talking about Flash fiction, but I love this as a metaphor. Brevity is the soul of lingerie. And I think lingerie is a really good metaphor for Flash, because it covers up, it tells a story, it teases, it tantalizes, it reveals, but doesn't reveal everything. It's a garment of evocation. And those are all like words to think about how to write a story. And in fact, Roland Barthes said, is not the most erotic portion of the body where the garment gapes. You don't see the whole body as you might in a novel. You just see a tantalizing hint of it. And that's kind of the art of it. So just quickly here, what is less more? This is like a cliche we use in life. So I'm just curious, is less more? Or what do you think about what is, if you say less is more, what does that mean to you? Reading through some of the past definitions here. Condensed story. Yeah. Hannah, we're going to get to that story you put in there. Little stories with big hearts. Love this. This chat is going amazing, Annie. I've got to go. Less is better, says Quinn. Less can give room for more. Yeah. So it's about that expansiveness, because the reader is providing that big room. Peace, no fluff. Yep. It can be if the less is good. Yeah. The less needs to evoke. It needs to open up a world. It needs to be expansive. Yeah, and Micah Smith, it's not what is said, but what isn't said. So that's part of writing Flash, is what you're not putting on the page, what you're hinting at. I call it the art of omission. Yeah, you don't complicate the story with facts and logic. You let the reader fill in the gaps. These are great. You guys should write craft books. Yeah, the reader can flesh it out with their imagination, says Steve Paletti. Room for multiple interpretations. That's great, Nikki, because that's absolutely true. Whereas novels, the author is really guiding you more to a specific kind of storyline. Flash fiction kind of opens up the story to different interpretations. Okay, I can't read them all. I'm sorry. These are so great. My gosh, and everybody's participating here. It's such a shame, but I've got to move on in the interest of time. I skipped that one. So somebody put this in chat. So this is a famous story that supposedly Ernest Hemingway wrote when he was challenged to write the shortest story possible. He said he could write a 6-word story. And I'm going to ask you just to think, is this a story? Like earlier, I said that a story had a beginning, middle, and end, and character change. That's the Western culture kind of definition of story. Other cultures have different definitions of stories, by the way. And I think Flash also kind of subverts the nature of a story or creates new types of story. So this is the Hemingway story, for sale, baby shoes, never worn. Is that a story? And I've heard everything. I've heard people argue that it's not a story. That's perfectly fine. I'm personally going to argue that it's a story, and I'll tell you why later. Yep, Anthony says 100%. Reagan, absolutely. Lynette, yes, the mind fills in the story. That is a crucial part of this. It may not spell out a whole story, but it creates one in the reader's mind. Yep. So cool. It is a heartbreaking story, David, but I have heard people who interpret this as maybe the baby was just born with huge feet. So that's maybe the more humorous version. The baby is playing in the NBA now. Good. It seems like the consensus is that this is a story. Cool. Lots of great interpretations there. And sorry, I have to move on. I was like discussing this a lot. We got to move on because you know what we're going to do? We're going to write a 6-word story as practice, as kind of warm up to writing the prompt that Annie's going to give you in a bit. So I'm going to read some different 6-word stories, and then I'm going to give you 5 minutes to write your own. And I got to tell you, so 5 minutes is plenty of time. It's only 1.2 words per minute. And I have heard just fantastic masterpieces written in those 5 minutes with 6 words. That's another advantage of flash fiction. So Joyce Carol Oates wrote, "Revenge is living well without you." I love that comma there. And I love how she worked with this cliche, living well is the best revenge. Living well is not only the best revenge, it's living well without you. This one's a haunting little story. I still make coffee for 2. It's about the presence that someone absent can have in your life. You know, it could be grief for someone who's died, it could be a divorce, anything that leaves you alone. This 9-year-old thyroid cancer patient survivor wrote, "Cursed with cancer, blessed with friends." So even 9-year-olds can write very moving stories. Abigail Morehouse wrote, "Barrister Barista, what's the diff, Mom?" And I like this because it not only tells a story, but you get this voice. You know, you get Abigail's like kind of, or the voice of kind of a snotty teenager. Kimberly Kilroy wrote, "Still fit into high school earrings." And I like this because it has a twist at the end. I think our expectation is somebody saying, "I still fit into my high school dress." But still fitting into your high school earrings isn't about the size of your body. It's about your style. So Kimberly's maintained her style that she had in high school. Caroline Richardson wrote, and this was during the pandemic, "For sale, prom dress, never worn." And I just love this because she reinterpreted the Hemingway story for something personal and also poignant. So the exercise is to write a 6-word story or 6-word memoir, however you want to interpret it. It can just be a story. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes, and we are going to share by posting them in chat. And I'm going to get my timer out. If anyone has any questions, please put them in chat. I'm trying to be mindful of the time, and I bet I've gone over. So rev up your engines and go. We're at 2.5 minutes, so halfway there. Lots of good ones in the chat if anyone wants to pause and get some inspiration. If you've already shared one, write another one. Write 5. One more minute left. All right, we are at 5 minutes. And as I wait for my partner Annie to come up here, I just want to say there's some amazing stories here. I think we could put together a little anthology, and I wish we had time to do a reading. Have you been reading them, Andy?
Yeah, these are amazing.
I'm going to stop my sharing. Should I do that?
Sure. Do you want to read a couple out loud?
Oh my gosh, I'm just, let's see. I had some that I really loved, and now I got to find them. I like When I Left You, We Expanded. Let's see. I loved the one about the pregnancy test, not being able to afford a pregnancy test. I can't find that, but I think it's so good because it tells this story of the future, that a baby might be born and there might not be a lot of support around it. I wished for change to change. There was one also, like, let's see. I love Donuts Fill the Holes in Life. that also is a funny story. Let's see.
I also love The Obituary Didn't Include Me, thankfully.
Oh, I didn't see that one. That's a good one, yeah. No monster under the bed, pity. Wow, that's a brave sleeper there. Sometimes we want monsters in our life for entertainment. Really, I like good. Go for it.
What do you mean he's alive? I like all the murdery ones, apparently.
I know. I think it's tough to write something with that sense of plot and movement, you know? Like mine tend to be kind of more poetic, and I see a lot of really good poetics. This one's interesting, from Ozzy Benhart. I always wanted to be estranged. That's so interesting to figure out, because generally we seek belonging as human beings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, I wish we could read them all aloud.
One last one. I found you, now get lost.
That's fun.
We are paradoxical creatures, human beings. we live in contradictions. And that's a good lesson about what to write toward, especially in flash fiction, the contradictions, the paradoxes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's get on now to our contest prompt. I do want to mention, Willow, I'm so sorry about the closed captioning. We're using a new software and we were scrambling to figure it out that whole time and we couldn't. So we'll make sure there's a version of this with captions when it's done. Cool. Sorry about that. Alrighty, so now it's time to announce the prompt for the Freewrite 500. First, I'm going to go over the judging criteria. The judging panel is made up of a few folks from the Flash Fiction Institute and a few folks from the Freewrite team. We'll be judging on 3 things. One is just the length. It has to be 500 words or less. 2 is the relevance to the prompt, and 3 is just creativity. And a reminder that the winner is one winner will receive the prize package that includes 1 Freewrite Traveler, 1 Words Are Hard writing prompt deck, 1 Flash gym session with the Flash Fiction Institute, and publication on the Freewrite and the Flash Fiction Institute blogs. One more thing before we get started. We got a lot of questions about this, which, folks, tells me you didn't read the terms and conditions. So please go read those before you submit. But no, the use of generative AI is not allowed in this competition. We're not interested in what ChatGPT makes of this prompt, and ChatGPT isn't interested in winning a Freewrite. So please just use your own brain. That's why we're all here. Yeah. But yeah, the judging panel reserves the right to disqualify any entry suspected of using generative AI. All right, so the deadline to submit your final story is this Monday, September 22nd, 11:59 p.m. Eastern, so end of day. And we will share the link for you to submit in the chat and all of our social media. And if you signed up, you'll get an email. All right. So here's the prompt. And this was written by Meg Pokras of the Flash Fiction Institute. She is great with prompts. Let me get it up on screen. That's not it.
She has a special Substack prompt newsletter, Prompts of Resilience, I think.
Yes, absolutely. We'll link to that too.
Yeah, and she has given us a bunch of prompts for Flash Fiction Institute too.
Yeah, I love the way her mind works. Okay, so here is the prompt. Write a story about an unusual companionship. We have a couple keywords there. Just a note, the keywords in the photo are just here for inspiration to get you writing today. You do not need to include them in your story. The competition prompt is write a story about an unusual companionship. 500 words, no more. That is it. Does everybody have it?
You don't have to write about a chimp.
Correct. You're welcome to. I would love to read it, but you don't have to. So we are going to sprint for 15 minutes.
All
Again,
right.
If you haven't been to a Freewrite sprint, this is just to get you started. I'm going to tell you when to start. You're going to write for 15 minutes. You're not going to stop till I call time. That means keep those hands moving. Write whatever comes to mind. Let your thoughts flow freely. That's what we're all about here at Freewrite. So if everyone is ready, I'm going to start the clock. I'll play some music while we're working so you don't have to listen to me and Grant type. And
Good,
let's go. Grant, if you want to mute yourself, I'll get the music going. All right, everybody, that is 15 minutes. So come on back or finish up whatever sentence you were working on. We'd love to hear how it went in the chat. And if you have any questions, please do drop it in the chat. We hope you got some good ideas for the prompt, and you're welcome to continue writing, of course, but we got to go. So thank you for joining us today.
Annie, can I do one thing before we leave?
Absolutely. Well, it depends what it is.
Good reply. I forgot to share one screen, and it's a good way to end things, actually.
Okay, perfect.
So I'm going to share that as a kind of closer. Here it is. So that 6-word exercise that I did, it taught you, you should know everything you need to know now about writing flash stories, flash memoir. Like, you told a story with hints, you told a story with omission, you invited the reader in as co-writer, you used constraints to enhance your creativity, and you wrote toward the mystery or the breadth of a story. So I think you all accomplished that. Apply those 5 things to any flash story you write, and you'll be successful.
That's awesome.
Back to you, Annie.
I'm just cracking up reading the chat. Hannah says this went better than the 6-word story. Oh, okay.
I always ask people if they want to buy a word for the 6-word story. I'll sell a word, $50 a word. I'm cheap.
That is not an offer in the competition, everyone, but we are giving you 500 of them. So, Caitlin asks, do titles and such count towards the 500 word limit? The title will not, but I feel like you're going to push it, Caitlin. But the official answer is the title will not. Good. Willow, there's no minimum word count, just the 500 limit.
How great if somebody submitted a 6-word one.
Right. That would be pretty great. Alrighty. Thank you so much, Grant, for being with us today.
Absolutely. This was fun.
Everybody, you can grab Grant's book, The Art of Brevity, wherever books are sold. And if you have any questions about the competition, you can email us at hello@getfreewrite.com, and we'll get back to you. We'll share the link here for submissions in a minute. Just a reminder that the deadline is 11:59 p.m. Eastern on Monday, September 22nd. All right. And here is the link. Put that somewhere safe. If you are signed up officially with us, you will get an email as well. So keep an eye out for that. All righty. Let us know if you have questions. You know how to reach us. See you later, everybody.